Hello everyone, my name is Josh and welcome to WHIMS, and today I'm going to be talking about a very special video where I'm just going to be talking about me and my disability. So my name is Joshua Williams and I was born on the 18th of November 1994 and I have cerebral palsy. So what cerebral palsy is in a nutshell is it's basically a condition which affects the brain either during a pregnancy of a child or during the labour of a child. If it's a particularly traumatic labour, often it involves the deprivation of oxygen for a certain period of time, and it can affect all sorts of different things. It can affect someone's mobility skills, it can affect someone's speech, it can affect all sorts of different things, and there's all sorts of different variations, but my variations are I tend to get stiff on my legs whenever I sit up or stand up for a long period of time. It often, whenever I go out to see family and I'm, going to, say, a wedding, I have to, if I do need assistance somewhere, like going upstairs or, going up a step, I do have to have, assistance from other people, like two people mostly, to help me get from one place to the other. But most of the time I do have, mobility of my own. I can go around on a walker. But I do often, I do need assistance sometimes when it comes to difficult things like going upstairs or, doing anything else. So I do feel like it is a part of my life, but it's not something that I feel has really held me back. And I think that's something that's very important. But when I was first growing up, I mostly crawled just everywhere. And I think my crawling around everywhere was something that I just did regularly, and it wasn't as if it was like when a baby starts to crawl around, it's something that they do, but then eventually they'll take their first steps at some point within the first year or so of them being alive. With me, I'd just crawled around everywhere, and that's just something that I did. And I kind of liked that because when I was a child, I used to go into my imagination a lot and play all these imaginary games. And it was something that I really liked because it really kind of made me think that when I'm up on a chair or anything else, that's when I'm kind of, going into talking with my family, talking with my sisters and everything like that. Whereas when I'm down on the ground and I'm crawling around and playing with my toys, that's when I'm in the imaginary world. That's when I'm, going on these adventures, playing these games. So there was a great way of differentiating all those things. So that's kind of how I thought of it for the longest time. So when I went to school, I kind of adapted to school very quickly with, making friends at least. And I used to play games where I'd go down on my hands and knees and it'd be very great. But then things like splints were introduced, and splints are basically what you put on. It's basically like a bit of plastic. It's like a I don't know how you describe it. It's kind of like what are those things that Forrest Gump has in the film Forrest Gump? It's kind of like those, but they're made of plastic and they fit round sort of like the calf of your leg, and they're secured with straps, like Velcro straps. I used to wear those when I was a child, and I can remember they used to really, 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 really hurt. And it could be just that I was a massive crybaby as a child, that I couldn't, that I couldn't do anything new or interesting without, crying or moaning about it. But I remember they used to really, really make me feel uncomfortable, and that's because your legs are kind of, it was basically designed kind of like how retainers in your teeth are meant to straighten your teeth. They're meant to keep your legs straight, and they're meant to keep your legs very secure and fit and strong. So that's basically what they were designed for. But they also kind of just hurt a lot, and I think that was something that I really didn't like. And of course, another thing that my school would do is they'd put us in these things called standing frames, which had the exact same the exact same structure as the gaiters. They would kind of or splints. I think they were called gaiters, but I think they're called splints as well, where they just put them on and they'd basically be secured. It's a bit of plastic that they'd just secure around the calf of your leg, and then they'd secure it with Velcro. Or they'd put you in a standing frame where they'd put you on the standing frame and they'd make you stand up, and then they'd just secure your bottom half with a strap, like a Velcro strap, and then they would just basically secure your top half so that you don't fall backwards while you're in the standing frame. And they basically have something to hold on to, like a table or something at the top of the standing frame, so that if you're, say for example, doing any schoolwork while you're in your standing frame, you can basically just do that whilst you're standing up. And I can remember that used to be very painful as well. So it's because you're on your feet most of the time, and usually they would keep you in there for not a very long time. They'd usually keep you in there for about the duration of a lesson. So, or if you ever get tired, you have to basically say that if you get tired, they can, just take you out of it again. But I can just remember they really used to tire me out. And I remember I used to not focus a lot of the time because of that. And I feel like that's something but that's probably just down to me. One of the subjects that I absolutely hated in school, or I didn't hate because it's a very strong word, but I really didn't like maths. And to this day, whenever I see numbers on a screen, like whenever I'm looking at the timer on this clock, or whenever I'm looking at the timer on my actual clock in my room to tell me the time, what time it is, I immediately get kind of, a little bit, flushed. And I'm kind of like thinking, oh my God, I need to keep in time. I need to remember when my lunch is, or I need to remember how long this video is going just so I can keep track of it. And that's one of the things that I really didn't like as a child, is I just really didn't like maths. So the things that I really could have gravitated towards were English and art, because to me they were a way of expressing myself. And because with maths, it's very straightforward. It's very, it's very much all sense based. 2 + 2 = 4, and that's it. Like you don't have any other, room for improvement. You can't just say, oh, what if today 2 + 2 = 6 instead of 4, or something like that. You couldn't say that. Like it's basically all it's all logical. So it's basically like if the Vulcans from Star Trek invented an entire system of learning, that's what maths would be in a nutshell. Where it all has to be about logic and numbers and formulas and things like that. Whereas I'm more of a Captain Kirk, Jean-Luc Picard kind of guy, and I'm all Jean-Luc Picard because I've got a bald head. But yeah, but also I just love Patrick Stewart, so yeah, there's that as well. But William Shatner had the Michael Myers mask, so technically he wins out in terms of popularity. But yeah, I like Jean-Luc Picard. But yeah, I digress. But I personally think that me adapting to various different things at school really did help, but eventually there came a time when I just had to say, okay, let's do something a little different, and let's try to see where that takes us. But I really just think it's a matter of I can do these things. I can, adapt, and I can grow, and I can, do all these different things. And I have adapted very well, I think. I feel like even though it's very tempting to say that when I was growing up, I was tempted to go back on the ground and start crawling again. When you're past that childhood stage, that's no longer an option because it can be rather humiliating. But for me, I just think that was just my way of escaping. That was just my way of kind of that was my way of escapism, because I didn't learn how to read for a good long while. I think I was a bit delayed in my reading as well, but I do think that because I didn't know how to read, or I didn't know how to, the only forms of escapism that I had outside of just playing my games was watching television. So me going into my imagination was my way of kind of escapism, and that to me was very important. So when it eventually came around for me to stop, um, going around, crawling around, and doing other things, I had to immediately choose that option because I was getting old. I was getting older, and I feel like if you continue to do that stuff, it is going to be very difficult and it is going to be tough. And of course, I needed to look after myself as well. So of course, you had to put that away and figure out a way in which you could, not engage in playing around with fantasy games or all the rest of it. You have to basically say, what can I do in life that can help me use this that I am so fond of, but use it in a creative way. So I basically decided to write when I found out, because I found out in a very interesting way how to be a writer. And I basically, I found out in a very interesting way. My parents came up with a magazine that told me J.K. Rowling was a woman. And this is very interesting because now we know that J.K. Rowling is a woman. It's pretty much common knowledge. But back when Harry Potter was first coming out, or the first Harry Potter book was published, J.K. Rowling very famously decided not to use her real name because it was a book that was going to be appeal to boys. They didn't want the boys to know that woman had written it. So they basically said, "Can we use your initials?" So she used the term she used the initials J.K. Rowling. And I didn't know what that meant. Like when I was a child, I was kind of a bit slow. I feel like when people ask me, "Oh, look, Josh, J.K. Rowling's a woman," and he goes, "Oh, who's that?" And then she goes, "Oh, well, it's the author of the Harry Potter books." And he goes, "What's an author?" And I had to be explained that, you know, books are actually written by people and they don't just exist or grown from seeds out of the ground. So that's when I started to realise, oh, I could do that then. I could become a writer. But I never actually pursued it until I was 16 years old, and I actually, you know, started to put pen to paper on my first short story, which was called Prologue. And my inspiration for that, I've even showcased it on Reader's Corner, where I basically said, it's basically my version of a prologue to a novel, where instead of a character being murdered or a character sort of, you know, experiencing something and then it jumping off into another area, I basically just have the entire book be the beginning of that person's life, being them be born into the world. And I added the aspect of my twin brother a little later, which I won't go into detail now because it's already getting quite long. But yeah, that's my entire that's my disability, my umbrella of disability. And let me know what you think of this video. Did you enjoy it? And give it a thumbs up if you like it. And let me know what you thought of this video in the comments. Would you like to see more videos like this? Or do you think this is enough for now? But yeah, stay tuned, guys. I hope you're all doing very well. For my next top 10 list, it's part 2 on my top 10 favourite depictions of death in film and television. And I hope you're all doing very well. Take care. Bye for now.